Hello guys, welcome back to Archive Horizon. In this video, I like to talk about Marian RIPTIDE skill, manifestation priority, team compilation, and her gameplay based on your Marian's build. If you are looking for Marian's weapon comparison, I already posted the videos before. You can click the videos link in here or in this video's description. When Marian uses her standard skill, she will load 1 Kraken bullets into her gun, allowing her next shot to fire that Kraken bullets and deal a massive chaos damage to a single target. After Marian loads the Kraken bullets into her weapon, you can reuse her standard skill again to unload the Kraken bullet and return to using normal bullets. Kraken bullets damage is counted as skill damage and cannot be replenished by any other means, which means you cannot reload the Kraken bullets by using other operative skill. After you upgrade her standard skill Nera upgrade, when Marian is equipped with Chaos Weapon, increase Marian's standard skill damage by a certain percentage based on the number of Kraken bullets she loads into her weapon. If she loads 5 bullets, then all of the 5 bullets will receive 80% damage increase. However, if she only loads 1 bullet, then that bullet will only receive 10% damage increase. Because her standard skill can only load 1 Kraken bullets, then the Kraken bullets from her standard skill can only receive 10% damage increase. While the second upgrade, when equipped with Chaos Weapon, Marian's normal shot can decrease the standard skill cooldown by 0.1 second for each pellet that hit an enemy. Marian's standard skill indeed can deal a significant damage per shot, but the problem is, it can only deal damage to a single enemy, and compared to her ambush support skill which can obtain 5 bullets, Marian's standard skill can only deal the least damage than the 5 Kraken bullets she obtained from her support skill. That is because the Kraken bullets from her standard skill can only obtain 10% damage buff from this Nera upgrade, while her support skill can obtain 80% damage buff if she manages to get 5 Kraken bullets. Not to mention that, her free-to-play weapon skill also requires using her ambush support skill in order to fully activate the weapon skill buff. Therefore, using her as a main DPS can be quite ineffective in most game modes, especially when the game mode has to deal with many mobs enemy. When Marian uses her ambush support skill, she will immediately appear on the field to replace the active operative and convert all the Tide Song stacks over here into Kraken bullets and load it into her weapon. Marian can obtain a certain Kraken bullets based on the Tide Song stack she has. Up to 5 Kraken bullets she can obtain if she fully charges her Tide Song stacks. There is 3 ways to charge her Tide Song stacks. When Marian is in combat situation and off-field, she will gain 3 Tide Song stacks per second. When other operatives use their standard skill, Marian will gain 7 Tide Song per standard skill use. And if you upgrade her support skill Nera upgrade, when the active operative shot hit a target, Marian will gain 0.4 Tide Song per shot hit. Her support skill second Nera upgrade can allow Marian's support skill to be used even when the active operative is in an uncontrollable state. Marian's ambush support skill is her main power, and it can also obtain the buff from her standard skill Nera upgrade based on the number of Kraken bullets she gets after she uses her ambush support skill. Therefore, it is highly recommended to use her support skill only when she fully charges the Tide Song stacks in order to get 5 Kraken bullets and obtain 80% damage increase. When Marian uses her ultimate skill, she will throw a water grenade that will explode and causing 3 continuous explosions deal AoE damage to all enemies in range. If you upgrade her ultimate skill Nera upgrade, the first upgrade can gradually increase the ultimate skill final damage by 20% after each explosion, while the second upgrade can allow the last explosion to inflict stun effect on the target hit for 3 seconds. Marian's ultimate skill is very useless that can only deal low total damage but consume a high ultimate skill energy. So this ultimate skill is very not worth to use unless there are no better or more useful ultimate skill available in your squad. About the ultimate skill passive, yeah, it is very useful buff indeed. but it's called passive for a reason. That means you don't have to activate the ultimate skill, this passive effect already active for the entire battle. If you pair her with Katia Downwing, Katia's ultimate skill can deal a lot more damage than Marian's ultimate skill while costing less ultimate skill energy. Her Deiwos Skill is pretty simple. When equipped with Chaos Weapon, increase the full squad standard skill damage by 20%. For each 100 element index, the ratio will increase by an extra 2%. About her manifestation, Marian's manifestations are mostly focused on increasing her Kraken bullets damage, which can indirectly improve the active operative's DPS if you include Marian into the team rotation as a sub-DPS. Here is the improvement from each manifestation can provide to Marian's Kraken bullets damage. While here is the improvement from each Marian's manifestation to Katia Downwing manifestation 2 equipped with tier 1 signature weapon if you include Marian as a sub-DPS in the team rotation. You can see that Marian's manifestation 3 percentage looks very promising, isn't it? But keep in mind that this manifestation is conditional. Marian's manifestation 3 can increase the charging speed of the Tide Song stacks. For example, when she pair up with Katia Downwing, every time you want to fully charge up Marian's Tide Song stack, Katia will need to use 8 times standard skill and continuously shooting to trigger 3 times Aurora Ray. So if you like to frequently include Marian into the team rotation, the rotation will become very complicated to do. However, if Marian has reached manifestation 3, Katia will only need to use her standard skill for 6 times and continuously shooting to trigger 3 times Aurora Ray to fully charge up Marian's Tide Song stack. Therefore, the team rotation will become more comfortable to do this time. Of course, Marian's manifestation 3 can also increase her synergy with other skill main DPS operative like Chono Enigma, Widya Agape, Haru Absconditus, and Series Kasana. But why this manifestation 3 improvement is conditional? That is because it depends on how frequently you include Marian into the rotation. This 9% represents this rotation, which is every time Marian's Tide Song stacks fully charged, you will immediately use her on the field. But in actual combat, maybe you can't use her like that all the time, since nowadays boss are likely to have invulnerable phase that need different rotation strategy. In summary, if you rarely include Marian into the rotation even when her Tide Song stacks are already fully charged, this manifestation 3 will become the most useless among all of her manifestation. That's why we can conclude that Marian's manifestation 2 can be the breakpoint, while you can keep investing until manifestation 3 to increase her synergy with the active operative in case you like to frequently include Marian as a sub-DPS in the rotation. Don't forget that Katia Downwing manifestation 3 can also increase her synergy with Marian RIPTIDE if you like to frequently use Marian as a sub-DPS in the rotation. For her team compilation, Marian's best pair is Katia Downwing, and because Marian can provide some passive skill and standard skill damage buff that doesn't have any complicated triggering mechanism, Marian can also pair up with skill DPS operative who like to spam their standard skill as an off-field support or a sub-DPS operative. Compared to Enya Exuvia, Enya Exuvia can provide a massive skill damage buff, but her buff has a very complicated triggering mechanism that requires simultaneously shooting and dealing skill damage at a fast hit rate. Not to mention that her buff has a time limit and her support skill also has cooldown. While Marian can provide some skill and standard skill damage buff without any complicated triggering mechanism and doesn't have time limit, she can also provide some additional DPS improvement if you include her into the team rotation as a sub-DPS. In summary, Enya Exuvia is more suitable for speedrun due to she can provide a massive buff for a certain duration, but her synergy is very limited to a certain skill DPS operative that can shooting and dealing skill damage simultaneously in a fast hit rate. while Marian is more suitable for long battle and can pair up with more skilled DPS operative due to she can provide some passive standard skill buff without a time limit and doesn't require any complicated triggering mechanism. However, if you use her as an off-field support, Marian can provide fewer skill buff than Enya Exuvia. Lastly, this is the most important part, which is Marian gameplay. Marian's role is a sub-DPS, secondary damage dealer, or whatever you want to call her. But instead of just using her as a sub-DPS, you can also use her as an off-field support operative who can provide some standard skill damage buff, or a sub-DPS who can trigger the boss in vulnerable phase, or to deliver a finishing move in case the boss is already dying. However, if Marian's 5 Kraken Bullets DPS is lower than the active operative DPS, using her as a sub-DPS might have potential to reduce the team overall DPS instead of increasing it. Here is the table that shows whether Marian's 5 Kraken Bullets DPS is higher or lower than the active operative DPS, which is Katia Downwing. At the same manifestation, if Marian is equipped with this weapon and her DPS is winning, that means you can use her as a sub-DPS in the rotation with a low chance of reducing the team overall DPS. Just make sure that when you switching to her, firing 5 Kraken bullets and switch back doesn't take longer than 2.7 seconds plus the time gap mentioned in here. For example, if the time gap shows 1.5 seconds, it means you will have 2.7 plus 1.5 seconds, which equal to 4.2 seconds to perform the switching action. But keep in mind that the slower you perform the action, the less DPS improvement Marian can provide from her 5 Kraken bullets. If you have approximately 1 second gap, that is pretty much safe for you to do this switching action. However, if your Marian is winning but highlighted in yellow color, that means both of Marian and Katia DPS are almost on par. So performing this switching action or not doesn't make much difference. In this condition, it is more recommended to not frequently use Marian as a sub-DPS because Marian will have a high risk of reducing the team overall DPS if there is a slight delay when performing this switching action. But you can still safely use Marian as an invulnerable phase trigger or to deliver a finishing move. Lastly, if Marian DPS is losing, don't ever use Marian as a sub-DPS. Because Katia DPS is higher than Marian, switching to Marian will only cause DPS reduction instead of increasing it. At this condition, using Marian as an off-field support operative is more recommended, and maybe you can still use her as an invulnerable phase trigger or to deliver a finishing move. Here is an actual footage example. In this footage, my Marian is using Tier 1 Abyssal Name and my Katia is using Tier 2 Aurora Sand. So the time I have is only 2.7 plus 0.4 second, which is 3.1 second to perform this switching action without causing DPS reduction. While the time it takes to perform this switching action in this footage is the time start as soon as I use Marian's support skill and the time stop after Katia fire her first shot. It took 2 seconds and 22 frames, which is 2.7 seconds, so I get 0.4 second DPS improvement at this point. Lastly, if you're wondering about this low and high logistic talent stat, Katia with low logistic talent stat has 14% attack percent and 11.8% elemental damage, while Katia with high logistic talent stat has 30% attack percent and 17.7% elemental damage stat. I hope this table can help you decide whether you can use Marian as a sub-DPS or as an off-field support operative based on your Marian RIPTIDE and Katia Downwings build. I think that's all for me. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Cheers.